majority to task for its failure to wrestle with some of the really complicated fallout from this. He says the court's decision is likely to generate other serious practical consequences in the near term. One issue will be refunds. Refunds of billions of dollars would have significant consequences for the U.S. Treasury. The court says nothing today about whether, and if so, how the government should go about returning the billions of dollars that it has collected from importers. But that process is likely to be a, quote, mess, end quote, as was acknowledged at oral argument. And then he goes on to talk about another practical problem here. A second issue is the decision's effect on the current trade deals, meaning the trade deals that the administration has struck all around the world. He says because IEEPA, and that's the statute here that the president was relying on, tariffs have helped facilitate trade deals worth trillions of dollars, including with foreign nations from China to the United Kingdom to Japan. The court's decision could generate uncertainty regarding various trade agreements. That process, too, could be difficult. And that, of course, is understatement from Justice Kavanaugh in that moment. Those two problems, as well as the question of whether the president will now try to justify tariffs under a variety of different other statutory options. Justice Kavanaugh counts 5 in his dissent. Those are going to be sort of the practical fallout from this decision that policymakers, as well as business owners and consumers all over this country, are going to be dealing with in the coming weeks and months. And of course, the court is silent as to those things. It may not think it was its role to decide them, but its failure to offer any clarity about what should happen is one of the things that's going to be most challenging in the wake of this opinion, Anna.
Yeah, so how do those next steps work?
It's not shocking to me when a court says, you can't do this, but they don't tell you. It's basically, now you figure out how you're supposed to do it the right way. That's not shocking to me. They don't want to get involved in policy. This came up in oral argument. In fact, it was Justice Barrett who made a point, and she's with the majority today saying the president cannot unilaterally impose tariffs. So it's not shocking to me. There appears to be, and I agree, Senator Warren is quoted as, there appears to be no legal mechanism to get the money back, the people who, to recoup the tariffs that were already paid. So, you know, that's just going to be out there. I guess for the people who had to pay tariffs, at least they won't have to pay anymore unless the administration comes with another way to do it. And I guarantee you that will end up back in Supreme Court, too, if it's done unlawfully.
And just kind of closing the loop on a question I asked very early on, when it goes back to the lower courts, what's their role at this point?
Well, this I misstated before. It's just sent back to the lower court to dismiss it finally. So it says remanded back to the district court to dismiss because of lack of jurisdiction. So that this particular case is over, but it might come back in a different form.
Duncan, what does this ruling signal about the court's independence from President Trump? And does John Roberts now become Trump's latest foe?
Well, he may become President Trump's latest foe, but I actually don't think this decision has much to say at all about President Trump in particular. It really, for anyone who's been dealing with some of these issues with IEEPA, and I know the American public is just coming to learn the words IEEPA and what it is, the statute itself has a long history that precedes it from the early 1910s when presidents were given this power to regulate trading with the enemy. There's this act called the Trading with the Enemy Act. And the power was expanded in the 1930s to allow presidents to regulate trading with the enemies during national emergencies. The president at that time, FDR, who was dealing with the Great Depression, used it as a way to regulate some finances with gold and other national emergencies. And over time, it came to be used by presidents to regulate all sorts of trading emergencies, national emergencies. And when Watergate came around in the 1970s, Congress actually passed IEEPA, this International Emergency Economic Powers Act, as a way to take power away from the presidency, not to give the president more power. And so as a way of doing that, they said you can declare national emergencies and use it, for example, to block property and freeze assets, prohibit transfers. It's been used by presidents for all sorts of things like freezing Iranian assets, sanctioning Russian oligarchs, restricting North Korean trade. But the guardrails that Congress put on it in the 1970s were meant to take power away from the presidency. So really, this is not about President Trump. It's not about President Nixon. It's really about separation of powers. And I don't think that there's any kind of animus here from the Supreme Court. This is really looking at the statute, the history of the way it was used, And it's the Supreme Court's way of saying what this power that was granted to the presidency through IEPA wasn't broad enough to include taxation. The words taxation don't appear in it. The words, block and nullify and prohibit, those are words that appear in IEPA. Those are coercive tools that are aimed at foreign actors. And the difference is not just semantic, it's a constitutional difference.
It may not be a direct message to the president. However, this is his signature policy. And Lisa, some of the justices this president handpicked ruled against him.
Yeah, but that happens across presidencies. If you take sort of a broader historical view, this president likes to believe that his justices should be working for him. Mm-hmm. But that is not a view that bears itself out over the course of history by and large. You see justices